I wouldn't be surprised. Whatever.
We haven't, but that's okay. Look, the ratings can't go backwards. Okay,
They can't. Can they not? Are you sure?
No, they might actually. I don't know. I'm not entirely convinced. Somebody could unrate.
All right. I also had the patch notes put up next to me in the OBS.
Ooh,
Being profesh.
Spice. I like it. That's actually really smart.
Yeah, because like before, I'm like, there's nothing really for people to look at when we're talking about stuff. So I'm like, I'll have the patch notes here.
Our beautiful faces, man.
Whose?
Yours. Really.
Oh, okay.
That's yeah. Beard looking great, by the way.
Thank you.
Such good facial hair. Yeah, jealous.
That's all I got going for me.
Okay. Yeah, it is about a month in between episodes, huh? Oh,
yeah, it's been a little while, but it's okay.
Yeah, we were waiting for a good episode.
Anyways, we were waiting for this big patch to drop, and then the patch dropped, and then we had to try it out. Like, there hasn't been anything in between to talk about.
No, and like it's hard to talk about stuff out of PTB because I think it all could change. So I think general feelings and things are, but also I think when things hit PTB, everybody's like, "Oh my god, this is sick," and then 3 weeks later, when it hits full release, people are like, "Oh, this is cool for a day," and then it's just straight back to.
Or even the opposite. It's on PTB and everyone like loves it, and then it goes on live day one. Everyone's like, "This is shite."
Which is kind of what happened to this patch, really.
Exactly. I'm seeing so much about that today, like on the patch. Which I understand. You know what? Open it up for us and then we'll get it. We'll dive in.
Yeah, we'll dive in here. Because I have got the document open, of course. Everybody welcome to I'm All Ears, Dead by Daylight podcast, where Dro and myself cup our ear to the fog. Just one ear.
Just one. I only have one.
Yeah, well, at this point. We listen to what you, the community, are saying regarding updates, balancing, character lore, popular quests, and much, much more. Today's a big update. We're going to try to do as much as we can, really talk about the hits, the highlights, I think. If you guys like this podcast, I know it's been a little sporadic. We're figuring our lives out.
Dude, life is chaotic. Sorry, y'all. Life's chaotic. Nuts. And on the plus side, though, I got the audio recording right, so the audio should sound good this time.
Should be crispy, right? But if you guys are here, if you usually, I would assume if you're listening to this, you're probably a longtime fan. So if you haven't rated the podcast on Spotify, please do that for us. It helps. We are the #1 rated Dead by Daylight podcast. Let's keep that going. And share it with your friends. If you have new friends getting into the game or something like that, I think that positive entry points are really important because the game, obviously any multiplayer game, can get very like toxic and heavy and negative.
Yeah.
So not to put ourselves on a pedestal, but I think we generally try to stay objective or objective positive. So share it with your friends. It would help out.
We try to stay positive, and also at the same time we try to be like, you know, a little bit of devil's advocate, like a little bit what if and stuff. Yeah. We try to like encompass all the ideas that goes around. Exactly. And then if I think it's stupid, I'd say it, you know?
Yeah, but like with reason.
With reason and respect. But your idea is dumb. I'm sorry.
Your idea is bad. Thank you guys for being here. Today, we are talking about update 6.1.0, which has some fantastic, I think, changes. Some changes we've never seen to the game before. Probably a lot of people are saying the biggest update really to ever hit the game since I would say probably like 2020, so 2 years.
I would agree with that for sure. I would definitely agree with that. I think it's definitely the biggest patch that I've been part of since starting DBD, and that's been like, I don't know, 2.5 years, 3 years. So
yeah, I know. Way back in 2020, they changed gen speeds. That was the last time they touched gen speeds. Maps got tuned up and resized and scaled down to help killers a little bit and really just cut back on bloat. They changed window spawn locations to make them more consistent to prevent infinite. So that was the last time we got something that was kind of really
big.
And like really trying to affect core gameplay. We've had a lot of patches that try to turn over perks or nerf, object of obsession and these kinds of things, but core gameplay really hasn't been touched in a while.
Question: when they touched the last time they touched gen speed, what did they do with it? Because I don't even remember. Did they increase it?
That is a good question. Yeah, they made it longer to do gens last time, so this would be the second bump in like length. Yeah.
Which I guess we can get
don't know the
into.
specific times.
I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think about gen speeds right now? My opinion, I don't notice 10-second differences on gens.
Yeah.
I have noticed like gens are being completed slower, but I don't think this has anything to do with the 10 seconds added to a generator. It's been like this, like other things factoring into that, like aka thanatophobia, like fuck that shit. But I feel like the 10 seconds added to the generators, I personally haven't noticed it being that like intense. Have you?
Sure. No, not really. I played I would say about 7 killer matches yesterday across varying killers, from Sadako to like Trickster, who's my main. Played Dredge. Just I went all over the place with it. And I had kind of the full gamut of matches. I had an Oni match where they got 1 gen done and I got 11 hooks. And I don't think that had anything to do with the 10-second gen speed. I think they were bad survivors, which is fine. They just didn't know what they were doing.
We could get into the survivors, but like because I see a lot of people saying that like, oh, now it's like taking so long to do generators. I'm like, it's just 10 seconds.
Yeah. And it's
10 seconds. Okay. So people are like, yeah, but it's not just 10 seconds. Like 50 seconds is 5 gens, right? But then I'm like, okay, and then divide that number by 4, right? Because there's 4 survivors working on gens. So like, it's like, I don't know. We're not really adding 50 seconds to the game. If anything, we're adding like maybe 15, I feel.
Yeah. I mean, on paper, like I understand that. But I kind of talked about this in that article I wrote as well. But I think it's really, in some cases it's only 50 seconds, and in some cases it's way more, because if I have to pick up a survivor and put them on the hook and then I have to walk across the map to get to a gen, the 10 seconds might give me just 2 more seconds to go kick the gen and use pop or something like that. But even pop's been nerfed, so this is not like the same as what it used to be. So is it like making it so survivors aren't escaping? I don't think so. I think it's a buffer, but
I don't think so. I might be factoring in like a tiny bit, but I don't think it's like fully okay. Just for me, noticeable. I don't notice it. Maybe I'm just like have no sense of time. I don't know. I feel playing because I played both killer and survivor like all day yesterday, right? And from both sides, like. Gens didn't really get done on the survivor side, but we'll get into why that happened like a little bit later. But it had nothing to do with the 10-second gen increase or whatever. You know what I mean? I don't know. And from like my killer side, I got stomped every now and then. So it's like business as usual for me. I'm gonna be brutally honest with you. I think a lot of people are like doing this, and it's like a placebo effect. Everyone's like, well, I'm not winning games today. It must be because of this, right? So
yeah, I mean, like, I played Trickster yesterday. My main, arguably, like, I'm a very good Trickster player, and he's not a high tier killer. I ran 2 slowdown perks, and I got, I think, 8 hooks, 1 kill, I think. And gens were gone, and they didn't go like bing, bing, bing. They weren't like super fast, but like I still struggled to keep up. It wasn't an insta win for these survivors, and some of them knew me. So in post game, I asked them like, how do you guys feel about the gen speeds? About my movement speed after breaking pallets, things like this. And they were like, it doesn't matter. Like I don't feel different.
Same here. I asked every group of survivor that I versed if they were able to communicate on the chat, whatever. I was like, what do y'all think of the patch? Did things feel easier, harder? And we were like, oh, about the same. So like, I'm not crazy. I just, things you see on Twitter are just the loudest people are on Twitter.
Right. And I think, and I said this on Twitter, but as we go into the patch, I think it's important to remember, it's like, if you were not a particularly skilled survivor, or solo queue was difficult before 2 days ago, it's probably going to be difficult today. Survivor didn't suddenly get easier, and your teammates aren't suddenly like all incredibly skilled. It's just not the case.
And then it's also with now that there's like less second chance perks, and by that I mean dead hard. People who've been relying solely on these kind of perks are just struggling, right? But that's like to be expected. It's not a surprise, right? If you're relying so much on using one perk to like help you escape or with chases, obviously now that it's like complete fucking doo-doo, it's gonna suck, right? I see, because people are still playing the same way. yesterday. Obviously, it's day one, right? So like, we can't judge too much based on day one of the patch. It's gonna take like a week for people to be accustomed or to find a new meta or whatever, blah blah blah. But like yesterday, like I had people trying to dead hard at me, trying to dead hard through me, trying to dead hard at pallets or windows, and I'm like, it's a 0.5 seconds endurance now. It's like you have to either time that perfectly or, you know, just be like a god and just know how to predict everything. But because I'm so trained to play against dead hard as well, I'm still playing with that mindset. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
If I'm chasing a survivor, I'm not swinging right away. I'm like waiting a couple of seconds still. Like I know there's dead hard is not the way it was before, but in my head, I'm like, you know, it's just engraved into my being that I'm going to wait a couple of seconds before I hit you. Or if you run at me, I'm like, I'm not swinging right now. I'm going to wait a second. Like, exactly. I'm still playing like as if Dead Hard was in play. And because the current Dead Hard is just like a super watered down version of that, if I don't fall for those little tricks, you're not going to get any benefits from it. You're just going to go down. And people are going down left, right, and center because of that. You know what I mean? Now, I did go against people who are usually used to balanced landing or head on, and they seem to be playing the same way and everything is working fine. But the people who are like relying so much on Dead Hard and are still trying to use it, it's not working very well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know. I played a few Survivor matches yesterday, and yeah, we could talk about reasons here in a little bit, but there were several times where like yes, when I took a hit, I made 10% less distance. And yes, the killer had a 10%, faster cooldown, but I was still looping. I looped a Deathslinger, I looped a demo very, very easily around tiles for, 30 to 60 seconds without too much of a problem. Gens weren't popping. Is that a gen speed problem? I don't think so. I think that's people just getting lost in the map. These like really weird basic things. So personally, like when it came down to looping, I was still effective at looping. I really wasn't bothered. It was just nothing was happening while I was wasting that time. So I think it's important that if you feel like Survivor's harder, that's a valid feeling. But look at why. Are you wasting a ton of killer time and nothing's happening in between? Then that is maybe less gen time and less of the killer buffs being a problem and more of your teammates getting lost in the sauce or something.
100%, right?
Yeah.
And then it's also like, I just want you to think for a second and answer me honestly. Because like when I play Survivor, I'm a decent looper. I think I'm a good looper. So I could loop the killer for, 60 seconds, 45 seconds, whatever the fuck it is. But even before this patch, gens never got done when I did that. You know what I mean? True. I'm over here, like, first of all, sweating and full of anxiety because I'm just an anxious person. I'm like playing Survivor and I'm looping and I'm like doing the most. And the whole time I'm just screaming, like, where are the gens? Like, pop a single gen, please. Because I know that when I play killer and someone loops me for that long, at least 2 or 3 gens pop. So I don't know. Exactly. Solo queue fucking sucks, but I think solo queue just sucked before and it will suck now. I don't think it's really making that much of a difference in terms of like whatever.
100% agree. So
I think that like there's certain things that got changed that I don't fully agree with, but I don't think that they are making that much of an impact besides Thanatophobia if you're playing Legion or Plague, but that's a whole other issue in and of itself.
Right. Delete Legion is really
delete Legion and delete Plague right now. I will, I'll be a Survivor main for a second. The new Thana buff, it is not fun. Because this is when it comes to the factor, the extra 50 seconds to complete all 5 gens plus Thana. Now that shit adds up. And then people are not only using that, they're also using Pop or Ruin or Pain Res or whatever. And so whenever I load in and there's like a Legion or a Plague and there's Thana, I'm just like, oh my God, I'm going to be sitting at this fucking gen for like 2 minutes. And that's annoying. That I understand. I don't like the change to that at all.
I would say, I in a vacuum am fine with Thana. Like if we remove Plague, if we remove Legion, I think rewarding like a sort of hit and run play style and encouraging survivors to heal super makes sense.
That's different. Yeah, no, that's different. I agree with that.
But make it so that Plague's ability, make it so that like only M1s and special damaging attacks inflict Thana so that Plague sickness doesn't do this and delete Legion.
Well, no, even if you just switch it to like you have to injure someone with like a basic attack, like an M1, Legion won't work either. You know what I mean? Because it's a power ability.
Yeah.
So if they would have changed it, this is the one time I'm advocating for like a perk to only be procced off basic attacks. Because usually I'm like, no, I want my power to work with it. But like this is the one time I'm like, you know what? That would actually make it a lot better, because I do agree with Dana making it so that like, oh, there's stand on the field that should probably heal. But when you're versing someone like a Legion or a Plague, where healing is like obsolete, it's like kind of like frustrating. Because I'm always an advocate for like, I like things that have counterplay to them. If there's something happens that you could do something else to counter it, that's great. But when it comes to Legion, the only thing you do is get rid of Thanos to heal, but then Legion uses power again and just makes everyone injured again. And it's like such a waste of time. On top of mending.
Yeah.
It's like, ugh.
That's a massive problem. But like I talked about this with Legion, and I don't want my feedback to be unconstructive, but I think having deep wound and mending as like a killer ability, like a primary ability, is still not a good idea for this sort of reason. Because you hit people, they have to mend for 12 seconds. Now they all have Thana. Now they have to go work on the gen, and that's longer than it used to. It is. See, the thing about Legion and kind of what you said is it doesn't become skill based. It just becomes like this nightmarishly long slog for survivors. And Legion being one of the most popular killers at like a low to mid tier MMR, there's a lot of players experiencing this nightmare of Legion, and that could be influencing how they are experiencing the patch in its entirety, because killers also got a buff. So I think that's important to remember when we talk about everything as well. I think Legion needs an entire rework, and if you're experiencing a lot of Legions, I think that your problem is maybe more with him combined with Thana than it is with the whole patch and the buff as a whole.
Because like realistically, I don't mind versing Legions that much if it wasn't for like perk combinations people use, but it's always the same one. As soon as you log into a Legion, there's probably gonna be a Thana, and then there will be a Thana and maybe like a Dying Light or something like that. And that's just like Snoresville, dude. Boring.
Right. Combined with like the Eerie add-on that regresses gens.
Yeah, he has a lot. He has a lot, and it's just like these like base kit Legion. I don't mind. It's like whatever. He's still just an M1 killer. He's not like hard to like play against. It's just boring to have to fucking hold M1 and men and then do gens and then men and do gens. Like, ugh, I hate it.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. Is like I understand behavior being worried about increasing gen times too much, right? Makes sense. But then you can't put Legion in the game and force us to mend over and over and over and then add Thana, and it's like that is exactly what you didn't want by increasing gen time. So what are we doing here?
Yeah. But then it's also kind of thing of like, are they gonna have to balance everything around like one or two killers potential with something as opposed to look at it as a whole? You know what I mean? Because the Thana buff it's just really a problem when it comes to Plague and Legion. It's not really a problem with anybody else, I find. So, you know what I mean? I don't think it's that bad.
I would love to put Thana on Trickster, so I throw a few knives, wound somebody, and then I can just leave. I don't have to continue pursuing them. That makes sense. That'd be sick. But are we going to nerf the perk because of two killers?
That's what I mean, right? It's hard.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Yeah.
But yeah, well, so that's like that, at least with the gen speeds and stuff like that. We could just get into kind of like, I guess it's a base kit for killers, right? Everything got basically reduced by 10%. Also something that like maybe I noticed a little bit. I don't know. The whole day yesterday I was playing and streaming. I was like going in there trying to be analytical and see if anything really stands out to me. You know what I mean? And then when people would come into my streams, they'll be like, oh, how does it feel? And I'll be like, I don't have an opinion, which I guess at the end of the day kind of means that like nothing really feels that different. Right? Because if it was impactful, I feel I would have said, the recovery speed's great, the pallet kicking is great, but nothing. I was like, So personally for me, I don't notice this 10% buff with everything. I do now notice it if I'm running brutal strength. It's crazy. Like I used brutal strength yesterday and owning it, and I went to go kick a pallet. I'm like, what? That felt fast. Or like 4 or like 6 stacks to Bipple. I'm like, yeah, that feels nice. But paired up with those perks, I notice it. But without that, I don't really notice it too much. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. So for those of you that haven't read the patch notes, it should be on screen if you're on video. But killer kicking pallets, breakable doors, and gens. All of those interactions are 10% quicker. You can see the specific numbers in the patch notes, but most likely the numbers won't matter to you much. When survivors get injured, the speed boost they get, the 150% movement speed, is 1.8 seconds instead of 2 seconds. So that's a 10% reduction in the distance they can make. And then the killer cooldown after an M1 basic attack, instead of 3 seconds, is 2.7 seconds. So that's another 10%. So yeah, it's 10% across the board. Yeah. So I actually had uh, this to say. I actually wrote about this pretty in depth yesterday. So um, I put, what does any of this mean? On paper, it's
Hmm.
no doubt hard to conceptualize what these seemingly small metric tweaks really equate to. Hell, even when playing today, these changes felt large for all of a few minutes. Across 10 pallets in a match, these updated kicking speeds give the killer a flat additional 2.6 seconds. But to hand wave these numbers while removing the context and the importance of micro gameplay is to misunderstand or misrepresent the flow of a match in Dead by Daylight entirely. In many cases, an additional third of a second is the difference between taking another pallet stun or getting that last minute hit.
Hmm.
But I do want to take a moment and emphasize that over my few hours of killer gameplay following the above changes, matches felt normal. I've tossed and turned several times on whether the subtlety felt here is good or bad, because there's no doubt that if changes aren't felt, there's a looming question of how much they truly affect gameplay. This is a key reason why status effects like obliviousness or blindness, especially in relation to perks, are generally considered low tier, because the person in the killer role can't really feel or
Yeah.
even see the effects. If the updates are too subtle and they fly under the player base's scope of understanding or feeling, they risk being seen as useless. But inversely, a change that is too heavy handed in its implementation risks shaking up gameplay too much, angering and alienating a player base. And I think that's exactly what you said, Dro. Is like after at first I kicked it and I was like, okay, yeah, it's a little faster. I kicked a pallet, and then it was business as usual. It was in
Yeah.
the background. I talked to Hot Cross today. Respect Gary a lot, smart guy.
Oh yeah, I love Hot Cross.
But he said that playing killer was like easy mode after the buff, and in my mind, I just don't understand that at
I
all.
don't understand that
Um,
either. And he's like not the first person who said this. Like other like killer main players are saying the same thing, and I don't really understand where that's coming from. Games might have seemed easier yesterday, but like a giant patch dropped. And I don't think it's so much the base kit stuff that changed. I think it's just mostly to do with that hard. And like it's silly to put everything on one perk, but that perk, I don't know if y'all knew this, was overpowered. Like it's busted. And I think especially the people who are saying all this, the people who have played at that high level where people are constantly running, dead hard, decisive, BT, bar, and unbreakable. Now that they don't have that, I feel like everyone's coming up short in some chases and it feels easier. You know what I mean?
sure,
I don't know.
sure.
That's
Yeah,
how
I
I'm seeing
mean,
it.
I think there's a few factors, and this is not to call Gary out specifically. I mentioned his tweet, and you can find it on my Twitter. He responded, or I responded to him, but I think, look, at the end of the day, I don't think obviously Gary's very talented killer,
Hmm.
right? But I think there's a few factors in play. I think if you're playing at a certain time of day, especially after a new patch, you get a lot of the kids that haven't played in a while, or no, I say kids, the adults who haven't played in a while, who are just kind of there to have a good time. They get thrown
Hmm.
into, so you start playing against people that maybe aren't super good. I know you and I play during the day, where I don't know about you, but the daytime is sometimes a nightmare when it comes to
Oh, it's
good
a sweat
players and
fest.
good
Yeah,
teams.
it's a sweat fest.
So our experiences might be different, but I think the other thing is Gary does well before the patch. In my experience, Hot Cross is a talented killer before this patch came out, and him and Running Man have had nights where they do have easy killer moments up until 3 a.m. and then
Yeah.
that's where the sweat squads hit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think it's also important to realize that this patch isn't for the good killers. This patch is meant to make it so that the the lower end of the killer spectrum is a little easier, so that killers stick with the role longer, because we've complained about queues forever.
Hmm.
There's not enough killer players, and
100%.
so if we want more killer players, this kind of has to, and you can't balance for the high and the low end. It just isn't really doable.
Yeah.
That being said, I got my ass kicked. Like I said, that my Trickster match wasn't great yesterday. My Dredge match, I had a Zarina throw because she wanted me to grab her out of a locker. But like, so these things happen where like I got my ass kicked yesterday, at least a handful of times still.
Hmm.
So I really don't believe the idea.
Yeah. And like I said, like I
Um,
got my ass kicked yesterday, but it was no different amount than my usual ass kicking. Like it was, I
right,
won some, I
yeah.
lost some, won some, lost some. Some games,
Exactly.
my Deathslinger shots were on point, some of them weren't, and it was just like it was business as usual for me. I don't know, I didn't really notice it. So I don't really understand where everyone's coming over here saying that like everything's easier all of a sudden. I'm gonna chalk it up to it's like another placebo effect where everyone feels like yesterday was like kind of an easy day. The only other reason why it could be that is because the patch came out. So I'm going
confirmation
to
bias for sure.
That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, it's hard to know, but I agree. I think that a lot of people are kind of looking for something to be wrong in some cases, maybe maliciously or not. You know, I don't think Hot Cross is trying to be
definitely not Hot Cross,
a certain way.
Definitely not.
But I think if you go into it and you're like, oh, match is going to be easy because killers got buffed, and then if matches are easy, you go, yeah, it's overtuned, it's too far. And you know, I wrote about some of it yesterday, but I mean, realistically, kind of I talked about this. Previously, when a killer would hit a survivor with a basic and that survivor sprints, say they just hold W, so they get their speed boost and then they hold W while the killer's in cooldown, they run 16 meters, right? When a killer now, after the patch, when a killer hits a survivor, that survivor runs, they have the 10% nerf and the killer's the 10% buff, they run 13.6 meters. That's not drastically different. Like on paper, these things aren't making the game so much easier that you're just walking through things. You know, it logistically can't be the case. So I think we should all probably take a step back. You're likely getting some hits at pallets that normally a dead hard would have dodged, or just that fraction of a second's helping you get that little swing right before they throw a pallet. For sure, but you're not walking through teams. I personally don't think anyone's walking through teams because of these killer buffs. I don't believe so.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't know. That's my opinion right now. Like I said, I'm gonna take information as the days go by.
Yes.
I'm not somebody who's gonna base all of my opinions based off the first day, one day kind of thing. I'm gonna give it like a week, 2 weeks, and then I'll come out with a finalized like thought of everything. Just for me personally, as of right now, everything kind of feels like similar. Maybe certain things feel better. I just don't think I have played enough to fully like be like, yes, this is like better for me now or worse for me now. So
I agree with that. Thank you for letting me rant.
Oh my god, no, please. We love your voice.
But yeah, I agree. I think we should revisit this patch in about 2 weeks and have an episode that just revisits.
This is like our thoughts now, first day, and then we'll come back in 2 weeks and say what we really feel. Because like I said before, when I was streaming, people would come in and ask me how I felt about the patch. My what I said was like indifferent, which you know, if you think of it logically, just means that nothing feels different to me. So I think I'm expecting something to feel different, but because nothing feels different, I'm indifferent about the opinion of it. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah, it's not negative. It's so subtle that it doesn't really feel. Yeah.
Because I think I'm trying to look so hard to see if the changes impact me or not, that I'm not really like experience everything fully. Maybe I don't know. But like, so we'll revisit this again in like a couple of weeks to see how I feel about it. But another thing I guess is like, what do you feel about base BT?
Yeah.
So if you didn't know, now BT is base kit. You just have it normally. It's a much watered down version of the old BT. You get a 7% haste buff, which that's new. But then the endurance effect only lasts 5 seconds. Personally, I love it. I think it's nice that I don't have to worry about bringing BT into matches anymore. I was like trying to come up with like builds and stuff to do yesterday, and like the back of my head, I'm like, I don't have to put BT in here because it's just there, and it has saved my ass, and it has saved other people's asses multiple times yesterday. So I do like it. I do like.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I think it's something that when I wrote about it yesterday, I said, look, I mean, if we're trying to shake up the meta and we're talking about the necessity of perks, we have to, you know, I think you have to address why do people feel like they have to always run this perk? And so I think with regards to borrow time, I think it makes sense that it is now base kit. I think from a killer perspective, we always kind of assume everybody has it
always,
anyway.
Yeah, so it doesn't really affect me.
So nothing changes. I think because if you do run borrowed time now, it extends the duration of that endurance. So I think there's actually something fun of like, if you choose to run BT, somebody who counts to 5 seconds and tries to hit you will be more shocked that, oh, they have BT.
They're BT.
You know, so like, I think that's more interesting gameplay. I think from my perspective as a killer, I'm able to make more consistent judgment calls, knowing that everyone will always have endurance off of that hook. Previously it's like, I hope you don't have BT because I'm gonna swing on you right now, and now it's just like they'll have it, so there's no point in even going that far. I'm gonna go towards the unhooker. Or so. You could just make more consistent calls because there's more consistent info, and I think in a game that's all about RNG, I think that's good.
That's nice, yeah.
And yeah, from a survivor perspective, the rando who farmed me off of hook twice yesterday, it was a Dwight on Gideon, just kept farming me off hook. I'm glad because I don't think he would have had BT. Endurance got me out. So I think that all in all, for most killers, like, look, if you're a killer player, you probably should have just started assuming everyone had it. But now you need to, and it's something you can adapt around. So if you're frustrated with that change as a killer, I promise you can grow around it. And it's good for survivors. Killers got buffed. This is something survivors have needed for a long time.
Yeah. I'll agree with this perk in particular being base kit. When we go over, are we gonna go over perks and stuff, we think?
For the hits, there's some of them where I'm like, meh.
Okay, cool. So we'll go over the hit. And one of them I think is the hit, so we'll talk about that because people are saying some other stuff on Twitter that I want to get into as well.
There's a lot of DS conversation.
Yeah, that's the one. So when we get there, we'll talk about it. But yeah,
that's the one.
BT, I like it. I think it was something that was needed, and I appreciate that for sure. And then just another quick change that they did for this patch when there wasn't on the PTB is that endurance does not prevent a survivor from entering a dying state if they are afflicted with deep wounds. So I don't know if you guys know, but during the PTB, a lot of people are coming up with builds that allowed them to take like 7 hits before going down or something crazy like that. So endurance doesn't stack anymore. So if you take an endurance hit and you are in a deep wound status effect, like you need to like amend yourself, if you get hit again by another endurance effect, you'll go down. So which was needed because that would have been crazy.
Yeah, I tested it. Because I was running off the record, which we'll talk about. I think off the record is new meta, and I think it's healthier meta. But so I had off the record. I took a hit, and then I tried to take a dead hard hit. Did not work. So can confirm. And double endurance does not work. Don't build around it. It's a bad idea.
Well, that's like basically the base kit gameplay stuff. We'll just go over like the hits of like the perk changes that we have here.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll just start off with some killer. We'll go over all of them, but the ones that don't need like in-depth talking about, we'll just like say a quick piece and like move on. So barbecue, removing blood points from it. Everyone's a liar. Everyone is still using barbecue and chili. You guys all lied to me. Every game I had yesterday playing Survivor, the killers had barbecue and chili. So the whole I only use it for blood points is a lie, which I knew was a lie. And I think it's okay for us to say that it's a good perk. It's a good, even if you know exactly where to go after a hook, or even if you don't see the auras, you're either like someone's around me or someone's in a locker. Regardless, it's information that's good to have. So it's a great tracking perk, y'all. It's great.
Fantastic. It rewards you for doing your job as a killer and getting a hook, which is healthy gameplay we should reward. So it's a good perk. And I saw it a lot yesterday too. The change. I'm gonna miss the blood points, but in theory we should work on what they're doing and just give blood points more readily instead of needing perks.
100%. Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Let's barbecue. Next, corrupt intervention. Basically what it got changed is like with corrupt intervention deactivates when a survivor enters a dying state or the 2 minutes are up. So the last time we talked about this, we thought it would be one or the other, but we thought it was only if someone went into a dying state, but it's one or the other. So either 2 minutes or someone goes into a dying state. I haven't really noticed that great of a difference with it, honestly.
I like the approach they took because it allows killers who are struggling to find somebody a little bit more time, but once they find somebody, it removes that early game benefit. I see no problems. I ran it a few times yesterday, and it kind of felt normal because honestly, 60 seconds into a match, survivors have found different generators, and so the perk kind of doesn't matter at that point anyway. So yeah, I'm
upset with the direction it took with the corrupt intervention because I thought that it was just going to remain up until the first survivor goes down, because I thought the whole point of it was to try to stop people that just like kind of stealth by the 2 minutes until they could work on a generator.
It would make more sense.
I think it would have made more sense because it would have given killers enough time to find a survivor, right? And then down someone before those gens get unlocked. But also, like, if that happens sooner, corrupt intervention isn't up still, so survivors could go work on those gens now. So I thought they missed the mark with corrupt intervention changes. It should have been like up until the survivor goes into a dying state, I think. personally.
I can see that. Yeah, actually, I mean, now that you mention it, I don't see a reason for the timer. When the killer engaging in normal gameplay deactivates it, I mean, the killer has no benefit to not down somebody, right?
Yeah.
So
Unless
it's not like they can hold gens hostage.
I was about to say, like, unless you get an asshole killer that just goes in a match and doesn't chase anybody, they're just like holding the game hostage, and that's like,
yeah,
maybe that's why. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like they missed the mark in corrupt. It's okay. It's still those things.
Yeah.
Chlorophobia. I haven't seen anyone use it, so I don't really care for the perk.
What was
so basically,
the change to
healing skill checks move 50% faster for survivors under the effect of this perk. So on top of the current like effect it has.
Okay.
So it's like
skill checks, the circle, like the check itself moves.
Yeah, moves
slower.
faster. Oh, faster.
Or
but
fast,
like, but like, you know, like I think we could all hit skill checks at this point, right?
Yeah, I think I will say that perk at like lower MMR
could
actually
be annoying.
Phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
Just like that Sadako perk. Was it Rising Storm or whatever?
Yeah.
But yeah, like for you and I running that, like we're probably not getting huge benefits, maybe here and there, but like
maybe. And I guess also to our audience, I feel like a lot of people who listen to us, like, you know, play DBD. Yeah. And like to anyone who's listening, if you were around for like the old Ruin days, like we could hit great skill checks, so we could hit a little faster of a skill check. You know what I mean? It's not that bad.
And the glyphs with like continuous skill checks, and you know we've I think a lot of people gotten or have had to get used to really fast skill checks. So that perk, I don't love the idea of perks that a killer has their effectiveness is dependent on the like survivor's skill. They don't usually scale very well, so I'm not like the biggest fan. I still will run Chlorophobia on like a Sloppy Butcher Oni build because I think that's great. Give me blood, hell yeah. But I don't think I'll run it a ton more than I used to or anything.
No, I don't see the point in doing it, honestly. Yeah. Next one, I guess, is Dark Devotion. Now when survivor loses a health state by any means, it activates. Makes a really fun gameplay. I like it. I like the perk before. The change or the buff, I guess. I really like it now. I think it makes for really fun, chaotic gameplay.
Yeah, especially like Plague, getting somebody sick and then they finally get fully sick across the map and suddenly you just don't have a terror radius. Yeah, I think that stuff is super, super fun. So good, memey, spicy.
Good job.
You know, not meta changing, but.
Next up, the Eruption. So increased generator reduction when a survivor enters the dying state to 10% was 6. And now you're incapacitated for 25 seconds instead of 16 seconds. I like this perk. I like the perk. I mean,
especially with the flat buff of, which I guess we didn't talk about, when you kick a gen now, it always takes 2.5% regression. Eruption isn't quite so much a nightmare to stop and have to do, you know? So
it's a fun perk, and people are saying it's OP. Whatever. It's a perk that requires me to go to a gen, kick the gen, find a survivor, down a survivor, hope that the gen that I kicked someone's working on for it to explode, and then lock them out of it. Like, it's...
yeah.
OP is a strong word to use.
Right. Yeah, it does require so much killer time investment that I don't believe that it's OP at all.
It's fun when it works though, but I would not put it under the category of OP. Come on. Like,
yeah, it complements other slowdowns well. It in and of itself is not a good slowdown to use on its own, I don't think.
Agreed. Hex, no one escapes death. I haven't seen a single person use it yesterday.
I tried yesterday, but I didn't make it to the end game. So,
damn, too strong. Yeah, no one used it yesterday, so I don't know. It could be one of those. So if you didn't know what happened to Hex Ruin now, is that once the Hex Ruin is activated, survivors can see the aura of the totem within 4 meters, and over the course of 30 seconds, it increases to 24 meters. So it gives survivors a chance to actually find Noed at the end game, instead of just like, you know, running around trying to their best to like find it and they can't find it, and there's a whole mess. I like the nerf to it. I think the nerf makes a lot of sense, and it's great. I also feel like it's one of those situations where a perk got nerfed in some way, so no one's using it anymore. But that was only day one. Obviously, this could change.
Yeah.
So
I'll need to ask Running Man. He's a Noed enjoyer. I think that, you know, realistically at our level of play, Noed might get you one down and then it's found. But at a lower level, survivors are like, oh, it's Noed, I'm gone because I'll never find it. Exactly. And I think this solves that problem.
There's a fighting chance, and I like it. Next up is Ruin, which someone
Please, for the love of God.
Someone said that this new Ruin is stronger than old Ruin.
What?
Yeah, it was on Twitter, and I saw this tweet, and I literally died, came back to life, questioned why I came back, and then continued on with my day. So if you didn't know, Ruin now, right? So it only regresses generator at 100% speed instead of 200%, so it's a lot slower. And Ruin now goes away if a survivor dies before the survivors find and cleanse it. So in what world is this better than old Ruin?
It's worse. If we're talking old skill check Ruin, it's worse. And if we're talking Ruin from 3 days ago, it's worse. I don't understand.
There's no someone literally on Twitter. I fucking hate Twitter, everybody. Someone on Twitter was like, "This is busted." I'm like, "What do you mean? It goes away if someone dies, or if you keep it up, it's only 100% regression rate. It's not 200%." In what world is it? It's better.
It's not worth running now. I cannot say that enough.
Listen, personally, for me, I don't like hex totems. I don't run them unless it's like, a quirky little haunted ground moment or something like that. So I don't like hex totems in general. And this just made me not want to run it at all. Like I don't.
Yeah.
I haven't run Ruin in like 8 months. Like I haven't used it. But like now, it definitely will not be. But from this survivor's perspective, I love this nerf. Because I hate Ruin when I play Survivor. Y'all, when I play Survivor, I get absolute babies for some reason, or like people that just don't care. But like as soon as there's a Ruin on the field, no one can find it, me included, because I don't know where the fuck totem spawns are. I play killer, for God's sake. So I can't find the Ruin, and we can't do a generator, and it annoys me. At least now is not as strong, so I'm okay with that.
That's fair. Yeah. Here's my thing, and this goes right back to Chorophobia. It's totems are only as good as the survivors you're going against. If the survivors you're going against are smart, or they just have memorized locations, your Ruin's not going to last long. Your totems in Devour or whatever, they just don't last long. At a lower level of gameplay, if the survivors don't know where totems are, they last forever and they feel oppressive. So I'm cool with it going away after someone dies. Super sick. I think the reduction to 100% is insane because it doesn't last more than a minute and a half at upper level, and at a lower level when somebody dies it deactivates. That felt like a balance to me. This is like too far. Like doing changes. It feels very gutted to me.
I think I just have like a very profound hatred for this perk in general. Because when I first started playing Dead by Daylight, I came in with old Ruin, like old Ruin.
Sure.
Where if you didn't hit a great skill check, it just regressed. And those days, for someone who just came into DBD and like I was really bad at skill checks, I still am. It was very hard for me to hit great skill checks to the point that I was gen tapping. For like
oh my god,
20 minutes a match, dude. I was like, I can't be bothered to try to land great skill checks, so let's just gen tap this. So like for me, I'm like, I don't care for the perk. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. I think totems are such a sick concept. I think they look cool. Ruin has just always kind of been one of my favorites, especially as like a Pyramid Head player. But yeah, I think it cuts far too deep. I might write about that, but it wasn't something I ran a lot because again, at our level, it wasn't worth it. And so I guess I'll just continue not running it.
What if this might be stupid? What if you had like hex totem perks, right? Say like let's just say like Ruin or whatever. What if when you load into the match, as a killer, you see the aura of all totems and you could pick which one you want to like hex?
Yeah, I've thought about this concept because I figure you could workshop it to be like Sadako, right? You look at different TVs and arrow pops up over the TV, you hit a button. Yeah,
because you don't have to go to the totem, you just do it from a distance. Only because my biggest thing with like totems is just spawns. Sometimes it spawns next to a generator, sometimes it's next to a hook, and then sometimes under a box near a tree, and that's great. But then sometimes I run, haunted ground, and both totems spawn in locations the survivors never check. So like it would be cool if I could set them up, during a game. And then it's Ruin, so I want to hide this. Or it's like it's haunted ground, so I want this to be more in the open next to a gen. That'd be kind of cool. I don't know.
Yeah, I really like that idea. And realistically, I think what the first 30 seconds of the match, you have 30 seconds to place your totem to send it somewhere, right?
Mhm.
Because in the first 30 seconds, like survivors will spawn and they'll do a little spin around the shack or whatever tile they spawn near, which is where totems spawn. And if they don't see it, then they won't worry about it, right? So I think within 30 seconds, survivors get to the gen, they get to whatever they're doing, and they start doing it. I think if you then place ruin, then you give yourself a little bit of buffer time. Like I think that's a great idea. I think it has a lot of potential. It lets you select a place that makes the most sense. I mean, like there's only so many places anyway. You can't hide the damn
Yeah,
things really. So
it'd be cool.
you might as well get some choice in it. But yeah, being able to like look around and see all the glowing totem auras so that you're not having to stop as a killer and do something versus like you could just be across the map and like click a button while looking at that totem. I think that makes sense. I
Right?
think
It'd
it's
be
super
kind of
sick.
cool.
I'll do a write up. I'll consult you on.
Yeah,
that.
please. Come on, Frog Whisperer, do it. Next one is Jolt, which I fucking love, dude. Jolt has number cooldown, and it is, as a Death Singer main, this is my go-to slowdown perk. I think it's great. Requires you to down a survivor near a generator, so requires some kind of setup in a way, and it's only 8% regression, so it's not OP. But if I get multiple downs near this generator, it regresses a bunch. I love it.
Yeah.
Jolt
Yeah.
supremacy, dude.
It's a great change. We've asked for this for a long time. It's not OP still because you still have to be like near a gen. God forbid you take chase, and that chase takes you away from gens that are active still. So in that way, you don't often get to choose where you down a survivor, so you don't have a lot of choice and control. And I think that balances it well. But it's a good change.
I like it.
Yeah.
Knockout. Haven't seen it. You recover 25% slower on the floor. It's whatever.
You crawl slower too, right? That was previously what it used to be. So basically, when you're on the ground, you're just having a hard time.
Not even a slug anymore. You're just a rock.
There we go.
Yeah, I don't care for it, to be honest. I haven't really noticed it too much. Big one, Lethal Pursuer. Now does what it usually does, but also adds 2 seconds to any aura reading perks or abilities you have. And it's great. The biggest benefits from this are nurses and huntresses. Huntresses are terrifying right now. Like, so scary.
Yeah. Yeah, because like even glowing concoction, like the add-on, it gets a buff because of lethal pursuer.
Yeah,
so...
and when I first read it, I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. But like after playing with it out there, it's wild, dude. Or like retribution with it as well. Like the actually 2 seconds like really adds up. I like it. I think it's cool. I think the people benefiting the most from it right now are nurse and huntress, and nurses need more benefits. But it's a cool perk. I like it.
Yeah, I'll need to slap it on the Pyramid Man and see
if,
I get more like
I'm all ears
value, and
I'm all ears with Lethal Pursuer. This is not a crossover a podcast, by the way. It's just perks. And there's a podcast out there named Lethal Pursuer. Yo, let's collab.
Go.
Next up is Monstrous Shrine, which is really cool. So entity progress is 20% faster if a killer is not within 24 meters of a hook, and all basement hooks are now scorch hooks. I like this. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think the Monstrous Shrine has needed a change for literally forever.
Yeah,
really.
It was garbage.
And yeah, I think making it a scourge perk is perfect. I think it's great. Yeah, there's still basement hooks, so you don't get a choice always when you use them. And that balances that out pretty well. And survivors like it. Look, if you know the shack has basement, don't loop around the shack, even if that means you go down,
somewhere else, right?
Just somewhere else easier. Just things like that. So,
and talk about like trying to stop camping. It is the perk for anti-camping, and killers bring it in themselves, which is crazy.
Killers nerf themselves.
But yeah, I like it. It's a cool change. I guess this perk is a big one now because I guess it's like the new meta for gen slowdowns, which is overcharge. Its regression speed increases from 75% to 200% over 300 seconds. So it was nerfed because before it was 400%, which is a crazy number to say out loud. So the fact that they even did that, I was kind of like, I was taken back a little bit. But yeah, I think it's pretty good. I think it feels nice. It's not like super busted because even at max speed, it's only old ruin now. It's the old ruins regression speed, which is like not terrible. It's nice, but it's not terrible. But it's easy to stop. You just like tap a generator, so it's not too bad.
It's up to 300%. Is that
200.
right?
200.
200. Oh, good lord. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
over the course of 30 seconds as well, right? So
sure. Yeah. So you don't really get strong effects until it's been sitting for 10 seconds, 15 seconds. So yeah, that build up takes a little bit of time. Yeah, yesterday I had good times with, I think with perks like Pain Resonance. I think, you can consider it a much softer slowdown, but combining it with the 2.5% base kick reduction, so that anytime you kick a gen, it just takes 2.5 off. I actually had fun with it with Oni yesterday, being able to down somebody and then kick the gen they were on and then hook them, and then it's regressed 6, 7, 8 seconds, and I feel like it actually was fairly helpful. Now against really strong teams, it's probably not going to do a lot on its own, but I definitely think it's worth having now more than it used to be. Yeah,
100%. It's a cool perk now to have. I'm happy people are complaining about overcharge of all things. Pop Goes the Weasels next. Dead perk to me. Change the regression from 25% is now 20%, and its current progress at like this overall gen. So like people are saying that this pop is like still good. Strong disagree. If a gen is at 99%, including the 2.5% regression you get just from kicking a generator plus this, the max it does I think is like 22% regression. So from 25%, and that's if the gen is at 99.9999999%. So like,
it's
if you're kicking a gen at that point, if you made it to a gen at that exact moment, get good for you. You're a god. But aside from that, it's like just not good.
It's very
I think it's bad. I think it's bad.
I agree. I don't like it's I think it's one of those cuts that's too deep. I like the idea of making it a percentage of base progress. I think that is super sick. We saw that with Boilover, but really as what it is now, you could even do like 35% of base progress, and because you have to understand the circumstance of how many times you're going to walk up on a gen that's 80-90% done. It's not going to be often, and so most of the time you're going to find a gen that's at like 40, and so 30% of 40 is so negligible. So I don't know. I think the whole concept for this perk, it's just, not only do you have to hook somebody then walk to the gen, but the gen may not have a lot of progress. It's a little bit too deep. And I understand why it is that way, because pop is really dominant. Maybe we just scrap the perk as it is and figure out a way to rework it in its entirety. It's just not working.
And like I also do agree that I do like the change of it in a sense that like we're just taking away 25%. Was pretty strong before.
Oh yeah.
But I think they have to increase the percentage. And actually, fun fact in the patch notes. So this is calculated after the new baseline regression with kicking a generator. So it doesn't add the extra 2.5 on top of the 20. It's just 20.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
What's the point? It's not even that much. Because again, 20 of 50. Come on, 2.5. That's too far though.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? I just saw this. It was like in the notes. It says like note. This calculated after the new baseline regression when kicking a generator. So it's just a flat 20%. It's not 22.5. Very interesting. I didn't know that. Wow. Read patch notes. Or I guess we'll read.
So I guess actually, so does that mean that if a gen's at 50%, it takes the 2.5 off, putting it at 47.5, and then takes the 20% off of 47.5? That's actually what I'm reading that as.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
They should clarify that.
They should. Because we read about the different ways, so that makes more sense actually. But either way, dead perk, I don't use it anymore.
Fair enough.
Get the pain. Just increase the healing and repair speed penalty to 16% from 9.
Good. Sick perk now. I like
sick perk now. Very funny when you pair this up with Thana, Give the Pain. So I don't know if y'all saw the Ots video about the 4-minute hat thing from Pig you could do now. Which is wild. There's a video. Ots made a build with Pig, and apparently it takes like 4 minutes to remove a pig helmet from yourself.
Okay.
Isn't that wild?
Oh yeah, there needs to be some exceptions to these.
Yeah, because it's Thana with this, and then on top of the add-ons. And I haven't seen the video, but people were talking about it in my chat. I'm like, have you seen this video? I'm like, wait, 4 minutes of what? Removing your helmet? That's crazy.
Yeah, it sounds impossible. Yeah,
it sounds so crazy. The next one. So yeah, get the paint is cool now. I like it.
Yeah.
It's because before it wasn't very good, but now it's like a bit stronger, so it's kind of nice.
Yeah.
Pain res. It's just a regression perk now. There's no more tracking with it, essentially.
Yeah, people don't scream or anything.
Yeah, which I get why they did it. In my eyes, it's kind of like a bad perk now. Because people are like, oh, but you still get 50% regression just by hooking somebody. I'm like, yeah, if I down someone, hook somebody, the RNG's in my favor and the hook's there. But then, like, if a gen across the map explodes for 15% and a person or two is on it, I don't know which gen exploded. They just make up the progress quickly. And then I feel like nothing really changed, in my opinion.
Now that gen times are longer, 15% is bigger than it used to be. I think anyway. I think that's how that math works out. God.
Maybe.
15% of 90 is better than 15% of 80. But it's still, I mean, 15% of 90. I'm gonna ballpark. That's 11 seconds to make that progress back up. 10 seconds.
Like if you're solo, right? 2 people on a gen, you don't really get that much.
If it's 2, it's significantly less.
Like it's still a good perk. I'm just being a little bit, extra. But I personally liked it more for its tracking. Because I like to know which gen they're working on, which gen has the most progress, and which gen the pressure. Now it's kind of like, if I don't know which one, it's just kind of like, well, I hope that 50% helped me. Because now it's like, it's a perk that's like, I can't really tell if it's helping me anymore, which I don't like. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. And we talked about that earlier. Yeah. Perks that you don't feel like they're helping. Like if you can't see it or feel it, does it exist? And I think this was nerfed because of Dead Man's Switch, if I'm being honest. It's combination with Dead Man. And so 100%. It's like, is this the perk that needed to be nerfed? How about we just make it so that when survivors scream, gens don't lock during like DMS, or like, how about we fix that so we don't have DMS dock or something? But here we are.
I do love that we're living in a day and age where like a perk got nerfed because of Dead Man's Switch.
6 months ago, it would have been unthinkable.
It's so weird, dude. Dead Man's Switch was garbage, dude. Oh my god, it's hilarious. Wild. It's so fun. I love this like alternate universe we're in right now. Next one is the big one, Thanatophobia. Basically, just increase the penalty to 22% when everyone is injured, from 20. Funny how 2% makes a difference. I don't understand the buffs to this perk at all. I really don't.
Oh man, see, here's the thing. And we talked about this kind of in the pre-show a little, but the thing about Thanatophobia is not Thanatophobia. The problem is the 2 killers that can make it a nightmare. Really 3 killers, because Nurse is always a nightmare.
Yeah, well, that's a whole other.
That's a
thing
whole.
We can talk about quickly later, but like, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, when you use Thana with Legion or Plague and people are always injured, now they have to, with Legion, they have to mend for 12 seconds. Then they have to either work on the gen, all 4 people injured, and that takes 90 seconds plus these cooldown or these debuffs, or they waste time healing just to have to mend again. Like it becomes miserable where you're not like, it doesn't take skill, you just have to wait longer as a survivor to maybe survive. It's egregious.
It's just weird. And then like, why this random 2% increase? Like I don't really get it.
I think in my head they wanted to buff it for like normal killers, because it's not getting used on normal killers, I don't think, right? Like Trapper is bad, but like Huntress with Thanatophobia, now there's a lot of value there. You hit a hatchet cross map, cool, you don't need to kill him because you're getting value out of that perk or something, but it is a problem with 2 specific killers, and I'd hate to see it nerfed back down because of these 2 killers. I would like to see its interaction with these killers changed, because I wouldn't mind running Thana on like Pyramid Head or something.
That's
sure,
fair.
I would love to get value on anyone else but Legion.
Yeah,
I would just hate to see it changed because of these killers. I think that defeats the purpose of what they're trying to do by shaking up the meta.
Yeah, I think the proposed change of possibly making it so that like if you need to do an M1 attack instead of M2 attacks to get a proc from it would be kind of cool.
Yeah, something like that.
And then the last one for killer is just Tinkerer. I think it's still a good perk. It's not getting as much value off of it as you would normally, but still, knowing which gen is about to finish at least once, going there in stealth and then getting a surprise attack or something like that is still nice.
Yeah,
I think it was an overkill before, truth be told.
Yeah. Especially with Ruin, right? Being able to just know, especially Blight or Hillbilly, combining with these killers, it's kind of the perfect storm of like a nightmare. Honestly, I would have personally changed Ruin first and left Tinkerer alone because with Ruin now deactivating on someone's death, okay, that person's dead, Ruin's gone. Tinkerer can't proc multiple times unless these survivors are just not with it, right? Because previously with Hex Ruin, you run someone off the gen, it regresses to 60, lather, rinse, repeat. You could just defend gens, but now with Ruin auto deactivating, it's harder to do that. I kind of think Tinker is pretty well dead now that Ruin's dead anyway. We'll see, but I don't see people running like a Scourge Hook with Tinker or something like it, or Pop or Surge with Tinker. I think it's kind of just dead in the water.
100%. Well, next up is just Survivor perks. There's a lot, so we'll try to go through them like quickly, unless there's like the big ones.
Yes.
New BT. Not new BT, I guess, just BT.
Just BT.
This increases the endurance effect for 10 seconds from 5 seconds. It's good, right?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, good job. I don't think anyone's really running BT anymore, from what I've noticed.
Also good. Yeah.
But yeah, so like they did a job with the base BT, but current BT, if you run it, you just get more seconds of endurance. So like it's whatever. I think it's a waste of a perk slot if you just use it, to be honest. Now I don't think you really need it. Body knowledge, the increased healing to 50% was 33, and they changed it now so that the medkit efficiency bonus is minus 20%, so you go through your medkits faster. I like the change to that. I think it's like a good idea.
Smart. They listened to feedback on that, which we give them credit. Yep.
I just like that it's affecting just medkits in general, because you still get bonus healing speed all around, but if you have a medkit, you can't just abuse the medkit for very long anyways. I like that.
Exactly.
Actually. Calm Spirit increases the chance to avoid alerting crows to 100%. Apparently it used to be 80, 90, 100. I was just a flat 100. And allows you to open chests and cleanse and bless totems silently, but at 30% reduced speed. Why?
That's weird. Why is that not just on plunderers or something?
What a weird thing to do to Calm Spirit.
I'm so calm. I'm opening this chest real goddamn slow.
Real fucking slow, dude. It would have been cool if they didn't have the other part of it, because it would be cool to cleanse and open chests silently.
Yeah,
that would be
a
cool reason to have Calm Spirit. It's weird.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
I mean, I don't know. I would want to slap it on and run a bunch of boons and see what happens. Because if I hear bones, I'm like, oh no. So maybe it just seems really weird.
It's an overkill, dude. And from someone who hates cleansing, blessing, and opening chests, I will never run this. Because in the off chance I do have to do those things, I don't want to spend more time doing it.
Yeah, that and like I mean I don't think I want to make it clear. I don't think it's too strong. I just think it's weird.
Yeah,
it's just weird.
It's just weird, dude. Dark Sense now. Reworked. So each time a generator is complete, Dark Sense activates. While Dark Sense is active, the killer entering a 24-meter radius around you reveals their aura for 10 seconds. Kind of cool for Dark Sense.
Really good for new players. Yeah, that's very solid. And I think because Dark Sense is not ran at a high level, there's reasons for that. I mean, you could run it at high level now for sure, but at this point we kind of know, okay, well the killer was chasing someone over there, so I know where they're coming from. I think for new players, I think it's phenomenal.
It still could come in clutch though. If you're looping somewhere and a gen gets done, all of a sudden you see the aura of the killer, and you're just like, there's no mind game. You just like know exactly what to do.
Yeah, it's a little object of obsession.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of cool actually.
Yeah.
Whatever. Okay, the big ones. Let's go. Dead Hard.
Dead. Just dead.
Dead. Stop it. She's already dead behavior. What are you doing? So from the PTB, they reduced it. They nerfed it more, I should say. Instead of a 1 second endurance, it's a 0.5 seconds endurance. When you also calculate server ticks, I guess it's like 0.2.
It gets real weird, especially if your killer's a VPNer or if your survivor's a VPNer. It gets real strange.
Dude, it's so bad.
Yeah.
For those tried to dodge a hit with Dead Hard. Okay, go ahead. You do your spiel first.
For those of you that didn't know, Dead Hard, you used to be able to you'd hit dead hard, whatever button that is for you, and you do your little dash forward, which allowed you to avoid hits. You'd get some iframes so you couldn't take damage. They removed the dash forward. You don't like, you're not really dodging the hit or like going forward. They give you the endurance effect if you take the hit now. So you take on deep wound. So you're not lunging forward. You're just sort of like taking the hit and getting the sprint burst off that if it hits you. Yeah, you used to have a second to use dead hard. You know, the animation was a second long, and then in the PTB it was a whole second of endurance, and now they've nerfed it again to be half a second. So you have to get real good at knowing when a killer's gonna swing. It's very, very interesting.
It's hard to do.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, okay, first of all, I'm going to say, like, let the perk die. Dead Hard has had its supremacy for a while. We just went through some killer perks that are dead in the water as well right now.
Jesus.
So, like, I think it's, you know what, y'all, move on. I'm going to hold a memorial service for Dead Hard on my Twitch channel this week. So if you want to combine, if it's not affecting you that much, stop by. We're gonna do a little montage video of all the dead hards we lost. But honestly,
candlelight vigil.
Start running smash hits. It's better than this perk.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, like dead hard now, in my opinion, is good if you're really skilled, or it's good if you're gonna take a hit and you can't get to that. Like killers will swing through a pallet, you know what I mean? And so it's like if you actually can't get that pallet dropped, you know, then you activate it right as they try to swing through the pallet, you take the hit.
Exactly.
There are like some very small circumstances where you can almost guarantee you'll always tank the hit, but it's no longer dead hard for distance just so they can extend a chase 20 extra seconds. And man, as a killer, so happy. So happy.
I will say I hope they revert the endurance back to 1 second instead of 0.5 seconds. I feel 0.5 seconds is too slow. But I also feel as time goes on, we're gonna find those fucking Giga Chads out there who just know how to use this perfectly. So
I think we should give it, you know, a few weeks, but yeah, with latency, 0.5 is very.
That's what I mean. I'm just taking that into account because 0.5 with latency, it's almost non-existent. Like I guarantee you, like this, I was trying it out yesterday, and there's times where like I pressed it as the swing went through. But I guess the lunge just lasted a little bit longer and it just didn't register. It was weird.
Yeah, I mean, or like hit validation could be like, nope, they hit you before you pressed it. And so on your end you did, but you know what I mean? Like it could kick it back. So it's like, yeah, you don't really want players to feel like they are guessing to use the perk because they just won't use it.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, I'm glad that it's dead, but I do hope it reverts back a little bit to like a 1 second at least. But goodbye.
Right.
I guess decisive strike now is like a hot topic on Twitter. They made it so the stun duration is only 3 seconds from 5 seconds. That's the big thing people are talking about. Also, now it disables when the exit gates are powered. So in endgame, we can't just kind of abuse it, which that part of the nerf I thought was good. The 3 seconds from 5 seconds seems like an overkill to me. Because right now it's like basically attacking someone successfully and getting the attack cooldown. The only difference being that like you don't get a sprint burst out of it. You just kind of like run. The clips people are posting on Twitter are people just like getting decisive and running out into the open and going down and be like, what happened? You know what I mean? Like when you could have ran to the window at Killer Shack that's right next to you. So some of the things is like you're just playing a little bit dumb, but I do think 3 seconds from 5 is a bit of an overkill. Maybe 4 seconds would be nice instead of 5.
Sure. I'll start by saying we've seen a lot of Twitter posts. This is where most of this conversation is happening, is on Twitter. I've seen Running post, and I've seen Pixel Bush, I think, had a post where they take D-Strike. They are playing as killer. They get hit with D-Strike. The survivor is dropped, and they virtually get to go nowhere. Now, in Running Man's case, it was a Nancy in Sheltered Woods, and this Nancy, instead of staying in the shack where she was dropped and looping the window, she runs towards that giant tree in the middle where there's nothing. Makes no sense.
Nothing.
So,
and then Paul be like, DS sucks. Like, yeah, sure, but you also suck.
Right, exactly. I mean, and I think she got pulled out of a locker too, so I think she tried to DS bait. So, like, you're not even using it, right? You know, you're so okay. But then in Pixel's case, it was Midwich where they drop the survivor due to DS. The survivor runs and tries to unhook somebody who's on the hook, and they get down on the hook. Both of these scenarios are scenarios where you shouldn't be using D-Strike. D-Strike is supposed to be defensive, not an offensive maneuver for you to go get the unhook or go, baiting it out at a locker. You shouldn't be. So I think we have to be very careful. And I don't think people are being disingenuous. I think people are misunderstanding DS's intent. It should be very much a last ditch effort. This killer will not get off my back 100%. Scenario.
And like that's like the mentality with this nerf that behavior had, is because their intent was to stop this aggressive decisive strike play and to make it so that it's used for, you got tunneled out and the exit gates are right there and then whatever, you know what I mean? Like, it's supposed to help you escape a chase when you're being tunneled, not just being like, I'm going to be offensive and be a dick. Like, that's like, that's what they were going with, and I understand for sure.
Yeah, realistically, the stun for DS is 3 seconds. So, and that starts the minute the killer goes into the stun animation. Survivors don't get to run for 3 seconds, though. They get to run for like, I don't know, 2.3 seconds. There's a small time where the survivor drops, they go through their animation, then they get to run. So I think maybe an extra second at 4 seconds is a sweet spot. But like, aside from that, maybe stop hopping in lockers or trying to like go get unhooks after like, I think it should be defensive, especially with, we'll talk about it soon, off the record, kind of replacing D-Strike in a much healthier way.
100%.
I think we should rethink how we have considered D-Strike, and instead of saying it's gutted or it's effing useless or whatever, I think we should really think about, like, one, are survivors using it smartly, or are they trying to use it the way they used to use it? Things like that. So
agreed. Deja Vu, now you get a 5% increased speed bonus on generators that are revealed by Deja Vu. Y'all already know how I feel about perks that increase gen speed progress. I don't like it.
Weird.
Yeah, I just find it weird that like you want to make the games go by faster.
It's like, let's elongate gen speeds, but then let's make it so that a lot of people, like 4 people, could run Deja Vu.
Yeah, I guess the counter argument to this is that like thanatophobia exists. So like, kind of
but you get Deja Vu for free a little bit. So like,
that's true too.
Like Thana, like it is a Nightmare on Legion and Plague, but you have to work for Thana.
That's true. That's true.
But
just Deja Vu. Distortion now, they removed the starting tokens to 3, was 4 to PTB, and you can now regenerate tokens if you spend 30 seconds within the killer's Sarah radius. I already said this before. I love it.
Like Pebble.
I think it's great that you could get tokens back for Distortion, because I think it makes for really fun gameplay.
Love it.
Hope no more time limit on it. Cool. There's a lot more. There's a lot more like end game builds potentials for survivors, which is cool, and like I'm okay with that with Hope, honestly.
Yeah, especially with the DS nerf, something like Hope is going to be more consistent, because DS now deactivates when the gens are all done. So it makes sense that something like Hope and more end game stuff would come in to sort of supplement that without being OP.
Iron Will, the big one that everyone's complaining about, is just 75% reduction to pain noise, I guess. And it doesn't work when you're exhausted.
Right. Yep.
I'm okay with that. I hate Iron Will.
I don't run it.
I don't really run it either, but people run it against me when I play Killer, and it's just kind of stupid. And it's dumb in a sense that like survivors are quieter when they're injured. It's just like,
does
that make sense? Does that make sense? I don't know. And like in terms of accessibility, like I don't know, maybe you shouldn't be 100% quiet because you're injured.
I think the other thing to consider, and like I get this complaint, is like people being like, well, that seems weird because survivors now have different volumes. Like, like Jeff and Ace, they're very different in volume. So now it's like 75% for Jeff is still so much louder than 75% for Ace. So, and Behavior has said that they're going to go back and readdress maybe who's louder, what the peak is for that. And they're going to see like if they can figure that out at like a core level. But I agree that people should not be entirely silent. And so maybe that means taking Ace up a notch and things like that. But being entirely silent it's maddening.
Imagine you're a killer and you out mind game someone and get that injure, and now they're just like the survivor now benefits from that. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm okay with it. 75% makes sense to me, so good on you, DBD. Lightweight now, increased reduction of scratch mark durations for 5 seconds was 3. and then your scratch marks are spaced inconsistently. And by that, they mean that randomly your scratch marks just disappear.
Is it bugged right now?
I don't know if it's bugged or that's how it's supposed to be. But like, I would be chasing someone with lightweight, and then during a chase, their scratch marks disappear for like 2 seconds and then come back. So it's just like
that's a bug. That's gotta be right.
Is it a bug? I hope like it's not fun to go against because there's so many perks like Lucky Break, win, Dance with Me, Lightweight. I was in a match that these people's scratch marks keep disappearing, and I'm just like, what fucking perk are we using right now? I'm like, it has to be Lucky Break. I'm like, wait, there's blood. Okay, so it has to be Shadow Step. I'm like, there's no boon. I'm like, okay, it has to be Lightweight. And it ended up being like Dance with Me. But I was just like, it's just so, I hate the fact that things take away scratch marks. It infuriates me.
Yeah, scratches. Yeah, I'm a little concerned about Lightweight. I don't want to overblow that. I'm more concerned with Lucky Break than Lightweight, if I'm being honest with you. Recharging Lucky Break
sounds crazy.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of maps, somebody getting hit and having Lucky Break and you losing them is like 30-40 seconds lost, and that's impossible to recover from. I do have concerns about both of them, but I'm willing to wait and see if Lightweight's bugged or not too. That's a problem.
But it's also like depends on the map, right? Because so when the map this happened to me was in Swamp, so Swamp's already hard to track scratch marks with in general because of like the tall grass everywhere and stuff. And also like in maps like Leary's and stuff, because like those you break line of sight so easy that like not having any kind of tracking with like scratch marks is like very, very rough.
Yeah, corn maps, things like that could be very difficult for tracking for me anyway.
No, me too. Yeah, corn
Lucky Break on that or Lightweight on that is just a whole nightmare. Yeah.
And then we have Lucky Break. So you can now, after using Lucky Break, if you heal somebody else, you could recharge Lucky Break essentially. 1 second per healing is 1 second of Lucky Break back. We already said that we don't like these kind of like anti-tracking perks as much. Not so much tracking perks with auras, but with scratch marks is this kind of like, it's hard to like deal with sometimes.
Yeah, because scratch marks are such a core part of the gameplay that being able to remove those, I mean, at that point, might as well make it so that like, because there are things like Blood Favor, right, as a killer, where killers can block a pallet, right? That would be removing Survivor's core gameplay, but it's a totem. So like, what do killers do to prevent this? What do we get to disable? We don't. So it's weird, and maybe that's a false equivalence, but being able to interrupt core mechanics or like repeatedly interrupt them, it's a little strange. I think we got to be careful about that.
Agreed. Yeah. Next up is No One Left Behind. Now triggers when the exit gates are powered. And when unhooking a survivor, they gain a 7% movement bonus speed for 10 seconds.
And that stacks on top of, they have hope, and that stacks on top of like the base 7% speed.
This is like the end game thing I was talking about.
Yeah,
you can make a survivor 121% movement speed, and that's crazy.
God forbid you're Ghostface, where you're just like, you don't have a power, so they're just 121, and you're like, okay, bye.
All right, a big one here is Off the Record. So once you unhook or escape from the hook, Off the Record activates for 80 seconds. Gain the endurance status effect. Off the Record is now disabled when exit gates are powered, which you just changed that from the PTB, which is great. Works like DS. I'm okay with this perk.
Yeah,
I think I was
like
worried about it
DS.
before, but I agree. And I haven't had anybody like quote unquote abuse it on me anyways. Especially now that endurance status effects don't stack, people are kind of like more mindful. So,
yeah, I mean, if I think about it from like a killer perspective, okay, so I get unhooked and I have time to get healed by, like, a survivor has time to get unhooked to get healed by another survivor or something like that. But like, you know, with DS, like a killer chases somebody, they down them, they pick them up, and then they take the 5-second stun, and then all that time is wasted. I think with something like Off the Record from a killer perspective, I swing, I hit them, they have Off the Record, they run away, and I don't feel that 5-10 seconds of like stopping and being disrupted entirely. Chase either continues or I break away because they have to go mend for 12 seconds, so they take a penalty. it feels far more balanced. It feels less disruptive than using something like DS. And I think when we talk about DS's nerf being too much, I think we have to bring off the record into the conversation about like, is this intended to be the meta shift where we're like, okay, well, they can tank a hit and that protects them versus like them having to hop in a locker or hope to get picked up. Like killers slugging somebody because they're worried about having DS, well, off the record sort of solves that because it is a stand-in. You're not going to get slugged for fear of DS necessarily if you're running things like off the record. So I love it. I was actually really scared at first. I thought it was insane, but it's an endurance hit. It's better than a DS eating DS. So
I agree.
I think it's healthier for sure.
Okay, a perfect example of something that on paper sounded like ridiculous was actually very nice. I enjoy it as well.
Yeah.
Next one is overzealous. Basically just a Hattie perk, increases repair speed to 8% from 6%. And if you cleanse a hex totem, it's doubled. We already said our spiel about how we feel about like gen increase perks, whatever, gen repair speed perks, and I don't like it.
It's rough. It's a little scary.
Doesn't make sense to me. Pharmacy now guarantees an emergency medkit in every chest. Used to be just the first chest you open, now it's every chest when you're injured. Cool.
Yeah, I mean they have to waste time to open the chest and then heal, and that's fine.
Yeah, and if they're running Calm Spirit, it takes them like 500 seconds to do it. So.
Right, exactly. God.
This is a small change with Saboteur, but a change that I really like. Score tropes are now yellow auras when the survivor is being carried. I'm a Saboteur gamer now. I love doing Sabo builds. Actually, one of my Sabo builds that I posted on Twitter popped the fuck off with like 1,500 likes. It was crazy. But I like it, and I like the fact you get to see which is a score choke that we could kind of plan around those Sabos. You know, I like it.
Yeah, I actually I love that change. I have heard that because of the killer cooldown, the 10% faster cooldown, that like taking a hit and then getting that fast Sabo is actually like impossible to do now in front of the killer's face. Okay, I was just gonna say I confirm or deny because
I've been running Sabo builds only, and depends how, kind of like I guess half truth. So when I get hit under a hook and I do the Sabo, I could get the Sabo off, but if I'm already injured, I will go down.
Okay, so there's just no chance to dead hard or something.
Well, I've been trying. I haven't found the chance, but there's other ways that you could play with Saboteur. For example, the build that I'm using, I use Flashbang in Saboteur. So I would run up to a hook and then drop the Flashbang on the hook. And while the killer has to look away from me, I start Saboing, and they don't have time to like kind of hit me or push me off, so the Sabo goes off. So
it's honestly genius.
You can find builds to make it work, but you just don't get a free Sabo.
Yeah, which I like because as a killer carrying like, it's rare, but it's rough to like hit somebody, injure them, and then they get the Sabo kind of no matter what. And get away or dead hard away or something like that. And realistically, the 0.3 second difference, it's that's fine. If you get your Sabo, then at least you're down on the ground. You saved your friend.
I was about to say the same thing. So with Saboteur, if you're gonna try to save your friend from getting hooked, say they're on death hook and you're not, that kind of exchange is like worth it.
That's super good.
Because if you Sabo the hook, even if you go down in the process, because you have like that barely second to do it, so you go down in the process, but your friend escapes and you get hooked. That's a great hook trade because your friend is still alive, goes off and gets healed. You get hooked, but people come save you later. I think it's a great game changer.
100%. Yeah, good input there. I wasn't sure because I don't run it. That's what I'd heard, but that's a solid perspective.
It is something that I noticed, but I didn't really run Saboteur before. So I'm not too sure how much time you really had to recover from that before. But right now, it seems that if I'm injured and I get hit, I have exactly the amount of time I need to Sabo the hook before the recovery goes through.
Yeah, we'll continue to investigate as well.
Self-care, so reduced the self-healing speed to 35% was 50%, and then they removed the medkit efficiency bonus. It's just self-care.
It's self-care.
Yeah, who cares? Soul Survivor, whenever last survivor is alive, gains 75% action speed when repairing generators and 50% speed when opening the exit gates or hatch. I haven't seen this in play or have used it myself, so I really have no opinion.
Yeah, opening exit gates as last survivor kind of makes sense. I can get around that. Repairing gens as last survivor sounds
You're not repairing
Absolutely.
gens when you're the last
What are you
survivor.
doing?
Like,
Yeah,
if you're
for
doing
what?
that, you're revealing your position, and they're just fucked.
Should be looking for hatch, yeah. Unless you have, I guess, no options. They close hatch. Even then, I don't know.
Then you go for the exit gate. You're not gonna go for the gen. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, the only time this will work is like if you have one gen left, the person just died, and the killer's looking for hatch, and then your brain is like, I'm gonna finish this gen. Like, okay.
I guess, yeah.
A big change is spine chill, so it got completely reworked. Get notified when the killer is within 36-meter range. If the killer is within range and it looks up at you with a clear line of sight, your speed while repairing, saboing, healing, unhooking, cleansing, blessing, opening gates, and unlocking is increased to 6%. The effects of spine chill now linger for 45 seconds after the killer looks away or is out of range. Spine chill's icon indicates the strength of the killer's terror radius. So they kind of turned this completely into like an accessibility perk, I suppose. Because a lot of people are saying that they use this perk mainly for accessibility reasons because they're hard of hearing. So now it works like within the killer's terror radius. I like the change to it. I think it's great, but I'm also in a team of we shouldn't need a perk to help with accessibility. Right. It should be like something should be done in base game that will help with that, as opposed to making people who are hard of hearing need to run this perk in order to help them play the game. I think that's silly.
Yeah, it's been said for years that the Dead by Daylight mobile way of doing things, of having a visible heart that shows up in your survivor, and it's a super clean way to do it without making your screen like cluttered and messy. And you know, I understand doing this to spine chill. I think that's great. It's an added layer, but we really should be going back to the drawing board and accessing or working on accessibility. Dead by Daylight mobile has been out for a long time, and this feature still, unless they have patent pending over there with NetEase, I don't understand why that's still not part of base Dead by Daylight.
100%.
And it needs to be. So I do wonder if spine chill on a Sabo build, because of the 6%, would help to be able to like keep you alive. You get that dead heart. 6%, maybe it's interesting.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that. I'm gonna try it out later. And then Tenacity, Grunts of Pain while in a dying state have been reduced by 75%. That's okay, whatever. It's Tenacity. And the last big one is we're gonna live forever, so reworked. When healing another survivor in a dying state, your healing speed is increased by 100%. Additionally, performing any of the following actions activates this perk's secondary function. Perform a safe unhook rescue, take a protection hit, rescue survivor by stunning the killer with the pallet, rescue a survivor by blinding the killer with the flashlight. When this perk has a secondary function is activated, healing another survivor out of the dying state gives them the endurance status effect. It's cool. I like it a lot. It's a cool perk because it requires a condition to activate the stronger half of the perk, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I think we should start looking at that more for perk designs as a whole, from the survivor perspective, because a lot of survivor stuff is like, if you're injured, then you get this or something like that. But I think having to, you know, not or like work on a gen for 4 minutes and then get your flashbang. I like the idea of like save a teammate, they get buffed. That is an interesting premise that I think should be followed.
Yep. And that's it for all the perks, essentially. Do you want to talk about the progression that they changed?
Progression has been interesting. I've heard it's kind of bugged right now. We can go over it briefly, but I feel like it's got some bugs. I feel like it's got some kinks that might be worth revisiting. But we can go over the general stuff.
Yeah, so I don't know. Basically, now the way the prestiging works is if you prestige a character with their teachables, after prestiging them 3 times, you unlock all the teachables on every single survivor, for example, or every single killer. So they basically have been trying to cut back on the grind, which is something we've been asking for a lot. Aside from that, it's basically all it really is. You could prestige up to level 100 now, so if you want to show off, that's a way to do it. The bloody cosmetics you get happens at later times in the prestige, which is fine. I think it's okay. I still kind of just wish they removed the tiers of perks and just be like, I prestige once and I just unlock the perks on everybody. Like, I don't understand why we need such a huge grind, because for me anyways, I'm not really affected because I have everything unlocked on all my killers and survivors, so I'm fine. But the most things I need blood points for is to like unlock like add-ons, right, or offerings and stuff. So you still have a reason to need blood points, but making it so you have to play this game for 1,000 hours to unlock everything is kind of ridiculous, in my opinion.
Yeah, I fall on a lot of different places because this conversation's always like a little bit, I don't know, it's a little maligned. I think realistically, I having come from like I used to main a free to play game called Warframe, so, and when talking with like the developers over there, game economy is really important. You know, so if you don't give people an incentive to keep playing, they won't. But also that can go too far. So I think Dead by Daylight's relatively cheap game. It's $20 base, and then there's sales all the time on DLCs and things. So I think that if they make it so that you prestige the character once, you get all their perks on everyone. I think it's a little too far because it really at that point, I mean, I can bank the 2 million blood points or the 1 million blood points, prestige them, unlock everything, be done, and just play for like 6 hours every update and be over with. And I think if they're trying to retain players, I don't think they would want to do that. But I'll have to look and see. Like my Hattie's at level 1. I wanted to see how long it would take to go through, prestige her to 3, unlock it, and then see realistically how many hours that took before I like fully figure it out.
Fair.
But I also think the conversation about like to unlock everything, if you're unlocking everything, you have to acknowledge that you're going above and beyond the average person. I mean, especially as survivors, you're not playing every survivor, right? Killer makes way more sense.
Well, that's what I was thinking of though, but it's not even because if you want to have the perk combination, you still have to unlock all the perks. You know what I mean? So it's still something that you need to do, in my eyes.
Yes, I mean now more than ever, now that perks like are getting buffed left and right, Monstrous Shrine is good. Previously on Hag, it was like, well, I only am gonna I'm only gonna get the teachable for like these two, or and there's certain killers like I'm not gonna. In the past, it's like, why prestige Freddy? I don't use Blood Warden.
Yeah, that's fair.
Or whatever.
That's fair.
So there's different. Yeah, is anybody unlocking everything? No, there's like 7 to 10 perks that everyone goes for immediately, and then everything else is extra.
That's fair.
I think
that's fair to say.
I will say for the dedicated people, it is tough, right? If you are dedicated and you are wanting to like play with builds and figure out what you like, then yeah, you have to invest. It's still pretty hefty, so maybe some sort of gradient that builds the more, you've prestiged now 7 killers or whatever, so we're going to give you like slightly more or lower, something like that. But I really wouldn't know how they would do that. It's tough. I'm glad they've made the change. I think
the change is great for sure.
I think we should revisit
I get what you're saying though, because like I'm looking at it from my point of view. I'm a content creator. And like, for example, people love to make me do like perk roulettes, and I have to have all the perks of perk roulettes. So I'm looking at more of my point of view, not so much as like, just like a casual player. So I guess that's
somebody who plays 6-7 hours a week or so at most, Yeah, I think like I think this is a good start point, but I don't think you want to go too far too fast. So I think if they find that, and they'll probably have to revisit this again, kind of in the future as they add killers and stuff. But I agree. I see what you mean. Because like for me, on my perspective, I never went to get everything on every killer. I was like, that's just not happening. Now I feel like when I come back to streaming, I kind of could do that.
You can, yeah.
And I'm kind of chill with that idea. It doesn't. But like, I don't know. I've never been one person who has wanted everything, so I guess I don't connect with it well. It's an interesting concept.
No, I totally agree with what you're saying now. After like looking back at it, makes sense.
Yeah.
I do like the fact that you don't lose anything when you prestige now, and it's kind of cool that you could just keep prestiging and be like, well, I'm prestige 85 on Deathslinger. What are you? So like, it's kind of cool. Yeah, adds a little bit of that competition. What do you think about the portraits that I don't have a single one of?
The portraits are cool. I like the portraits a lot. I actually kind of take issue with and I saw Sister Karen and quite a few people talking about it, but right now, if before the change to prestiging, if you leveled up a ton like post P3 or whatever, if you just kept leveling the blood web without prestiging again, the devs said that they were going to reward you and sort of to for your loyalty and give you like a number of how many times you would have prestiged. But what I'm seeing is that everybody's like hard cap. Like everybody's
it's
at
hard
9.
cap at like 9. Yeah.
Yeah, my Pyramid Head's 9, my Trickster's 9, Karen, who I know has played the pants off Hillbilly, 9. So there's something bugged there that doesn't really make sense, and I think that should be looked at. I think the portraits are sick, and I love the concept of being able to, get rewarded and be prestige 11, 12, 14, or whatever. But if it's capped at 9, I think they gotta fix that bug.
I agree. And that's basically all the notes. The rest are just like some optimization, some PTB changes that we kind of already went over. Matchmaking incentive, which is kind of not working right now anyways, so it's like whatever.
Yeah, we'll talk about that soon. I'll be writing about that, but yeah, they've turned off the incentives. They kill switched that feature today because it's not working. So
yeah, I guess that is our, opinion after day 1 of patch coming out.
Yeah.
So far, I'm hopeful of what's to come. I'm excited to see what people end up doing, or people end up figuring out, and how people are going to improve as time goes on, yada, yada, yada. Oh my God, wait, one thing before we change it.
Oh God.
McMillan Estate. They added so many different tiles. Did you see that?
I noticed a 4-lane on Coal Tower. It's just like the 4 rows.
It's tiles I've never seen before. And
I noticed one. I thought it was like an Ormond gym, like one that was only on Mount Ormond. I've noticed a few weird ones.
Yeah, I wonder if they're adding different loops or tiles into the game, or like testing them out. Maybe interesting.
I shouldn't be resistant to change, but it sounds.
Well, my brain is like, I don't know how to loop this tile. I've never done it before, and I'm just like,
I know, because like I know Ormond and one other map, I can't remember which one, has tiles that are very weird, and you can't find them anywhere else. I wonder if they're just taking those and throwing them on other maps, which I guess is fine. I don't like them on Ormond, so sure, let's go. Yeah, that's a good mention. I forgot about that. I was confused yesterday.
Yeah, me too. I was very confused, and I just saw it on the patch notes. It's like added 5 tiles to McMillan Estate. I'm like, cool. But it's different. Gross. But yeah, okay. But that's officially it. I just forgot about that.
Sick. I mean, it's a good episode. It's thorough. I want to do more write-ups, but even when I was doing my write-up yesterday, all I was able to talk about was like core mechanics, because it was just really lengthy. But I think that what sort of lasting impressions, I think it's really important that everybody gives respectful feedback, and that you get some perspective. I think, talking about how you feel about this update, if something feels worse, feels better, that's awesome. That's really good. Be sure that you're trying to figure out why it feels that way, right? Yeah. If you're a survivor and you're like, oh, matches are harder, but why is it your team just like being bad? Are you looping worse? Are killers, I've had people today be like, they should remove Bloodlust. It's too much. And I'm like, well, let's remember that Bloodlust, which was slightly buffed, it deactivates when you break a pallet. It deactivates with power. So be sure we are explaining why, because then we can really talk about, okay, maybe this is a placebo, maybe this is a confirmation
100%,
bias.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't really know that about like Bloodlust. Maybe next week we could bring in like Hot Cross as a survivor main, and we could talk about his point of view, because people are probably just hearing us and we're like killer mains, and they're probably like, who cares, killer main?
Yeah, that's a good idea actually. Let's hit him up and do that.
I'll shoot him a message. He's a great killer main. He also survivor main, but he also plays killer, so he's a really good person to talk with and to get his opinion about it. Because I know people listening right now, some of you guys are like, sure, whatever, you guys think it's great right now because you're killer players, but you guys don't also know that I actually play both sides pretty equally. So
yeah, I played a lot of Survivor yesterday. I mean, to be fair, most of our notes are that it feels like DBD.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah,
but we are branded killer mains, so like I can understand if people listen and think that way. So like I said, we'll bring in our friend to Hot Cross. I'm gonna message him, who's a killer survivor main, and then we can shoot the shit and get the full scope of opinions out here.
Absolutely. Right. Thank you guys for being here. This has been I'm All Ears, Dead by Daylight podcast. If you haven't got on Spotify and given us a rating, please do so. We are the #1 Dead by Daylight podcast, and we want to keep that up, even though life is difficult. I think really we're hitting our stride, getting back into it now.
Oh yeah, for sure.
With these updates, and kind of the hype is kind of back a little bit as well. So,
for sure.
Especially when there's talks of the next license being maybe Resident Evil or maybe Aliens. Very excited. So yeah, stay tuned. Share this with your friends if they're new players. Give us your opinions, your feedback on Twitter. We have I'm All Ears on Twitter. What is it? I'm All Ears
PC for podcasts. I couldn't do the full name. It was too long.
Okay. I'm all ears. PC for parental control.
Parental control. Listen, it's what I can do, okay?
No, you nailed it. No, I wouldn't be able to do better. So, yeah.
Love you guys. Thank you guys for being here.
Perfect.
Yeah. Bye.